each played an instrument. My younger brother played clarinet, and after school, after graduating, he worked with my father and learned my father's trade, which was being an expert in piano tuning and a repair of any kind, or completely rebuilding a piano. And I just found my brother's letters he wrote from World War II, and so just this weekend I reread them all. And I didn't remember having read about it, but he actually took tuning equipment along, and he was part of the Randolph Field Air Force Band and served in India. And so they had a dance band and then the regular band, and these letters were from, most of them were from India. First was in Kansas for a while before being sent overseas, but then he spent his time in India. And they had both been in the Austin High Band. One thing was different then than in these latter years since then, was that only the boys in Austin could be in the band. Now we've always had that I know of here, girls have been in the band as well, but at the time that my brothers were in school, there were only boys in the Austin High School band. We attended Austin High School, the only high school in Austin at that time.
So, if you were born in 1917, you were in...
My brothers were born in 1919 and 1921.
There probably wasn't a Highway 35 back in those days.
No.
Do you remember?
There was the Post Road, was the first name for the road from New Braunfels, and when we from Austin to New Braunfels, we drove through Buda, then Kyle, then San Marcos, and then Hunter, and then Green, and then New Braunfels.
So that two-lane road that leads from Green to San Marcos, some folks call it Hunter Road, but it's really called Post Road, or back in those days?
Well, way back in the teens and in the 20s, it was Post Road.
P-F-O-S-T?
No, P-O-S-T. Meaning that was the route, I suppose, that the post office took to get the mail out. Otherwise, I don't know why it's called that. But I remember that it was. And we have a little piece of it out here still labeled Post Road.
Do you remember when the highway was built?
Well, there were several highways. For one thing, the first one was built was labeled Highway 81. Well, we're now calling that Business 35, or Elliott Knox Boulevard, named after a man who did a great deal in public works here for the benefit of all the city. Elliott Knox, it's a very fine man. But we're calling it Business 35 very much now because it runs. I remember the family here that was in business talking about, you know, like it's going to hurt business, but because people will drive on by and won't be coming into downtown. But that never really happened. As far as I know, that never really hurt the businesses to any extent.
So the address of the house that you wanted to talk about was?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the house that I spent 45 years in. When we married on April the 2nd, 1941, I had a very little idea of just how life was going to be, but we married in the Lutheran church that at that time was Lutheran Church, St. Martin's Lutheran Church in Austin on 14th and Congress, which was just north of the Capitol. That was built in 1929. Beautiful Gothic type of church. That is, the windows were, it was tall, it was had beautiful stained glass windows. And
what church was it?
St. Martin's Lutheran.
Is it still there?
Yeah, no, it isn't. Because it was so close to the Capitol, it eventually was bought by the Capitol and torn down to make room for buildings needed for state offices. Exactly what that particular building is called, I do not have the knowledge of that. But I remember a church before that was and on 13th. 13th was the street immediately behind the iron fence that surrounded the original Capitol grounds. That street was, I would say in my memory, relying on my memory, was like a one-way street. It was not wide enough, I think. And the way I remember it, would not have been wide enough for two to pass now. But I remember the inside was at a nice size, not a tiny church. It was, on the other hand, it was not as large a church as the one that was built in 1929. I don't know exactly when it was built, but I'm sure that it was in that church that my mother was